Hey everyone, and welcome to your personalized deep dive all about leadership.
Ooh, I like that personalized.
Well, we try to make it unique for each listener,
Yeah,
wherever they are in their leadership journey.
absolutely. And it's great timing because who isn't thinking about leadership these days?
I know, right? Whether you're prepping for like a big meeting, or stepping into a new role, or even just, fascinated by what makes a great leader.
Totally. And for this deep dive, we're going to unpack some serious wisdom from an incredible mix of sources.
It's like a dream team lineup of leadership thinkers.
We've got TED and TEDx talks from folks like Lars Sudman, Michael Timms, Seth Godin, Rizlan Torres, and Martin Gutman.
Wow, that is an all-star lineup.
And that's not all. We've even gained some insights from Simon Sinek himself.
It's like a masterclass in leadership all rolled into one.
Exactly. And instead of just skimming the surface like we often do,
Yeah.
we're going deep with this one.
Love it.
Really pulling out those golden nuggets of insight that can shift your perspective.
Yeah, those aha moments. The ones that really stick with you.
The ones that make you rethink how you approach leadership in the 21st century.
Okay, so where do we begin with all this leadership gold?
Well, let's kick things off with Lars Sudman.
Okay.
He starts by laying out a leadership problem formula.
Ooh, a formula. I like it.
That I think a lot of us can relate to.
Okay, let's hear it.
He says it's basically too little time, too few people, and not enough power.
Oh, yeah, that sounds painfully familiar.
Right, the classic leadership trifecta. And Sudman even talks about something called headless chicken syndrome.
Headless chicken syndrome. Okay, I've got to hear more about this.
It's that feeling of running around frantically,
Yeah.
when deadlines are looming, resources are tight, and you just feel like you're constantly putting out fires.
Oh, yeah. I know that feeling all too well.
It's like a default setting for leaders under pressure.
I've definitely been there.
But Sudman brings up this fascinating study about cookies and power dynamics.
Cookies. Wait, what do cookies have to do with leadership?
That's what I thought. But it's really interesting. Apparently, in this study, they randomly assigned someone as the supervisor in a group project.
Okay.
And guess what? The supervisor ended up eating way more cookies than anyone else.
Well, no way. Really? Just because they were labeled the supervisor.
Yep. And not only that, they also left more crumbs.
Oh my gosh, that's hilarious and kind of disturbing at the same time.
Right. It's a simple experiment, but it makes you wonder how quickly even the perception of power can change our behavior.
Totally. And it makes you think about those subtle shifts in power dynamics in the workplace.
Have you ever noticed anything similar, where someone's behavior changes as soon as they get a little bit of authority?
All the time.
Yeah.
It's like some people just can't handle power.
And it makes you wonder if those crumbs are a metaphor for something bigger.
Yeah.
Like how easily we can slip into those entitled behaviors when we're in a position of authority.
That's such a good point. It's a reminder to stay grounded and remember that leadership is about service, not about ego.
I love that. And this ties in perfectly with what both Sudman and Simon Sinek emphasize, which is that true leadership starts with leading yourself first.
So it's not just about leading others, it's about mastering the inner game of leadership.
Exactly. Sudman recommends dedicating around 40% of your time to self-leadership.
40%. That seems like a lot.
It might sound like a lot, but it's about prioritizing your own growth and development.
Okay, so you can show up as your best self for your team.
Exactly. Because how can you effectively lead others if you haven't taken the time to lead yourself first?
That makes sense.
Yeah.
But how do you actually lead yourself? What does that even look like in practice?
Well, Sinek talks about this crucial transition point where you shift from being responsible for the job
Yeah,
to being responsible for the people doing the job.
I see what you mean. It's
Yeah.
like the difference between being a coach and a player.
Right. As a leader, your focus shifts from your own performance to guiding and supporting the team.
So it's about creating an environment where everyone can thrive.
Exactly. And this is where Sudman's character traits check comes in.
Character traits check. Okay, tell me more.
He suggests thinking about the worst leader you've ever had.
Oh, I've had a few.
I bet we all have. And he asks, what made them so terrible? Then he challenges you to look at yourself and honestly assess if you have any of those same traits.
Ooh, that's a tough one. But so important.
Right. It's about confronting those blind spots, those things we might not even realize are impacting our leadership.
Because we all have them right.
Absolutely. We all have areas where we can grow and improve.
So it's like turning those annoying qualities into opportunities for self-improvement.
Exactly. And Sinek adds to this by suggesting that you spend even just a few minutes each day reflecting on your leadership.
A few minutes a day. Okay, I can do that.
He recommends asking yourself questions like, What challenges did I face today? How did I handle them? What could I have done differently?
It's like a mini debrief with yourself, a chance to course correct and make sure you're staying aligned with your values.
I love that. And speaking of values, let's bring in Michael Timms and his hilarious Gong Show story.
The Gong Show. Okay,
It's
should be good.
Oh, it's a classic. It's about the chaos of getting his daughters ready for some event. I think it was a dance recital or something.
Oh my gosh, I can totally relate. As a parent, I know that feeling all too well.
Right. Pure chaos. But Timms uses this relatable, slightly chaotic story to illustrate the importance of personal accountability.
Personal accountability. Okay, so how does a chaotic family story connect to leadership?
Well, he argues that this is fundamental, not just for leaders, but for everyone on the team.
So it's not just about holding others accountable, it's about holding yourself accountable first.
Precisely. And he breaks it down into 3 simple habits.
Okay, I'm all about simple habits. Let's hear them.
Don't blame, look in the mirror, and engineer the solution.
Don't blame, look in the mirror, engineer the solution. I like it. It's clear and actionable.
Right, and what's interesting is that it puts the focus on self-reflection before taking action.
So it's about taking a step back and really understanding your role in the situation before pointing fingers.
Exactly. It's so easy to jump to blame or make excuses, but Timms encourages us to pause and examine our own contribution to the situation.
And he even shares a story about a costly marketing mistake,
Oh, yeah, that one.
where his initial reaction was to blame his team member.
But then he realized that he could have designed the process better to prevent the error in the first place.
It's a great example of how taking responsibility goes beyond simply admitting fault.
It's about analyzing the situation and finding ways to improve the system, not just blaming the individual.
So it's a more proactive, solution-oriented approach.
Exactly. And when leaders model this kind of accountability, it creates a culture where others feel safe to do the same.
Which makes total sense.
Yeah.
If you want your team to take ownership, you need to demonstrate that behavior yourself.
100%. It all starts at the top.
But how does this tie into the bigger picture of leadership? Where does this personal accountability fit in?
It's a foundational element, especially when we start to look at the difference between leadership and management.
Oh, yeah, that's a big one.
Yeah.
Both Seth Godin and Simon Sinek have some really thought-provoking insights on this distinction. Okay, so what's the difference? Are they not the same thing? I feel like those terms are often used interchangeably.
That's true. But Godin argues that management is about meeting specs, maintaining the status quo, and basically keeping things running smoothly.
So it's about efficiency and order.
Exactly. Whereas leadership is about solving interesting problems and driving change.
So one is about maintaining, the other is about innovating.
That's a great way to put it. And Godin uses this amazing example of a bicycle race in Italy.
Okay, I'm intrigued. Tell me about this bicycle race.
So one of the cyclists is lagging behind until he figures out a way to utilize aerodynamics differently, allowing him to zoom past everyone else on a downhill section.
It's like that aha moment where you break free from the pack and embrace a new approach to achieve a breakthrough.
Precisely. And I think it highlights how leadership isn't just about doing things the way they've always been done. It's about finding creative solutions and challenging the status quo.
Which brings us to the concept of responsibility. Both Godin and Sinek talk about this as a core element of leadership.
And they approach it from slightly different angles. Godin focuses on the idea of taking responsibility even when you don't have the authority.
Taking responsibility without authority. I'm not sure I follow.
He uses this fantastic example of his friend Ben Zander, an orchestra conductor who dared to interpret Beethoven's Fifth Symphony in a totally unconventional way.
Wait, wasn't that the one where he made it faster and more energetic than the traditional interpretation?
That's the one. And some critics were appalled. They argued that he wasn't being true to the original score, but Zander didn't back down. He took full responsibility for his interpretation, even though he didn't technically have the authority to change Beethoven's masterpiece.
So it's about having the courage to own your choices even when they go against the grain or challenge conventional wisdom.
Exactly. And it's about believing in your vision even when others doubt you.
And Sinek adds another layer to this idea by contrasting the way managers and leaders approach motivation. Okay, I'm intrigued. What's the difference?
Well, Sinek argues that many managers rely on fear, shame, and anger to motivate their teams.
Fear, shame, and anger. That doesn't sound very inspiring.
It's not. It's about controlling behavior and ensuring compliance. But leaders, on the other hand, inspire through trust purpose and a willingness to be wrong.
So one is about pushing, the other is about pulling.
That's a great way to put it. And Sinek believes that the fear-based approach ultimately creates a culture of anxiety and disengagement.
whereas the trust-based approach fosters creativity, innovation, and a sense of shared purpose.
Exactly. It's about creating an environment where people feel safe to take risks and be their authentic selves.
But isn't there a place for tough love sometimes?
Yeah.
Like, what if someone on the team is consistently underperforming? Wouldn't a little bit of pressure be motivating?
It's a valid question, and I think the key is to distinguish between constructive feedback, which is essential for growth,
Right.
and fear-based tactics, which can be demotivating and erode trust.
It's about finding that balance between holding people accountable and creating a psychologically safe environment where they feel supported to take risks and learn from their mistakes.
Exactly. And this is where Godin's concept of lean comes in.
Lean. Okay, what is lean in this context?
He defines lean as being willing to be wrong.
Willing to be wrong. Isn't that kind of counterintuitive for a leader?
You'd think so, but Godin argues that it's essential for growth and innovation.
Okay, I'm listening.
He tells this great story about the Army-Navy football game where a kicker named Bennett Mooring missed a crucial field goal, costing his team the win.
Oh, I remember that game. It was heartbreaking.
Right, but at the press conference, instead of making excuses, Mooring simply said, "It's my fault I missed it. I'm glad it happened because I learned a lot from the processes."
Wow, that's taking ownership to a whole new level.
It is, and it creates a culture where people aren't afraid to experiment, to take risks, and to learn from their failures.
Because failure is just part of the journey, right?
Exactly. It's how we learn and grow.
So we've talked about self-leadership, personal accountability, the difference between leadership and management, the importance of responsibility, and even embracing being wrong.
It's been a whirlwind of leadership wisdom.
But what about excellence? What does that even mean in the context of leadership?
Well, Godin has this great anecdote about his photography teacher, who was incredibly passionate about photography and completely engaged with his students. He pushed them to create work that went beyond simply meeting the assignment requirements. He inspired them to strive for something truly exceptional.
So he wasn't just focused on the technical aspects. He wanted them to pour their hearts and souls into their art.
Exactly. And Godin argues that this kind of excellence, the kind that goes beyond checking boxes and meeting expectations, creates an emotional connection. It inspires people to push their boundaries and achieve something remarkable.
It's like the difference between a technically perfect photo and one that truly captures the essence of the subject and evokes an emotion in the viewer.
That's a perfect analogy. And I think it's a great segue into Rosalind Torres's insights on 21st century leadership.
Okay, Rosalind Torres. What does she have to say about leadership in today's world?
Well, she found that traditional leadership development is often ineffective in a world that's constantly changing.
It's like trying to navigate a speedboat with an outdated map. This is not going to work.
Right. So Torres poses 3 crucial questions for leaders in this new landscape.
3 questions. All right, I'm ready.
Where are you looking to anticipate change? Who are you spending time with to broaden your perspective? And are you courageous enough to abandon old practices that no longer serve you?
Whoa, those are powerful questions. They really make you think.
Don't they? They force us to step outside our comfort zones and be more proactive, adaptable, and open to new ideas.
And they challenge us to think critically about our networks, right?
Absolutely. Are we surrounding ourselves with people who challenge our assumptions and push us to grow, or are we stuck in an echo chamber?
That's so true. It's easy to fall into the trap of surrounding ourselves with people who agree with us,
Yeah.
but that doesn't really help us evolve as leaders.
It's about seeking out diverse perspectives and being open to new ways of thinking.
And speaking of challenging assumptions, Martin Gutman's concept of the action fallacy really makes us reconsider how we perceive successful leadership.
Oh, yes, the action fallacy. It's a real eye-opener.
He uses that fascinating comparison of the 2 polar explorers, right?
Exactly. Ernest Shackleton and Roald Amundsen. He asks us to imagine we're hiring a captain for a polar expedition.
Okay, I'm picturing it. We've got 2 candidates to choose from.
Candidate 1 has successfully achieved all major polar goals.
So a proven track record of success.
Candidate 2 has led 4 disastrous expeditions, resulting in failure and even death.
Okay, so one is Mr. Success and the other is Mr. Disaster.
But here's the thing. Gutman says that we're often more drawn to the second candidate, the one with the dramatic, captivating story of failure and near-death experiences.
Because we mistake a good story for good leadership.
Exactly. We're captivated by the action, the drama, the struggle. But Gutman argues that those struggles were often the result of poor planning, lack of preparation, and flawed decision-making.
So the action hero might not actually be the best leader.
Right. And he uses that brilliant analogy of swimming across a river.
The one where the swimmer is thrashing around, barely making it to the other side.
That's the one. That swimmer might seem like a hero, but their struggles were likely due to their own poor choices.
Whereas the swimmer, who carefully studied the river, planned their route and effortlessly glides across.
They get the job done efficiently and effectively, but it's not as exciting to watch.
So Gutman is saying that we often reward those who are visibly busy, even if their busyness is the result of their own mistakes.
Instead of recognizing those who quietly work to prevent problems in the first place.
It's like we're more impressed by the firefighter who puts out the fire than the person who installed the smoke detector.
That's a great way to put it. And it makes you think about your own workplace, right?
Are we celebrating the Shackletons who create chaos and then heroically fix it?
Or are we recognizing the Amundsens who are diligently working behind the scenes to ensure smooth sailing?
That's a really important question. It challenges us to look beyond the surface and recognize that true leadership isn't always flashy or dramatic. Sometimes it's about the quiet competence of those who prevent problems before they even arise.
Exactly. It's about recognizing the value of those who may not be seeking the spotlight, but who are essential to the success of the team.
Okay, shifting gears a bit, let's revisit Simon Sinek and his belief that taking care of employees leads to a culture of excellence.
This is one of my favorite Sinek principles. It's so simple yet so powerful.
Okay, I'm intrigued. Tell me more about this.
Well, he argues that when you create a work environment where employees feel valued and cared for, they're more likely to go above and beyond for the company.
It makes sense.
Ritter.
Happy employees lead to happy customers.
Exactly. And Sinek has some great examples to illustrate this point. One is the story about the Four Seasons Hotel.
Okay, the Four Seasons, what do they do?
He observed that managers at the Four Seasons consistently checked in with their staff, asking how they were doing and if they needed anything to do their jobs better.
So it's about those little gestures of care and support.
Right. And this simple act of caring created a culture of support and empowerment where employees felt valued and genuinely cared for.
And this is a great example of his leaders eat last concept, right? Putting the needs of your team before your own.
Exactly. It's about recognizing that the leader's role is to serve the team, not the other way around.
But that doesn't mean the leader is a pushover or doesn't hold people accountable, right?
Absolutely not. It's about creating a culture of trust and psychological safety where people feel supported to do their best work.
And Sinek believes that this type of culture ultimately leads to better service for customers.
He even tells a story about a barista at the Four Seasons named Noah.
Noah the barista. Okay, what about Noah?
Noah said that he felt like he could truly be himself at the Four Seasons, whereas at his previous job at Caesar's Palace, he felt the need to keep his head down and just get through the day.
So it's about creating an environment where people feel safe to bring their whole selves to work.
Exactly. And that authenticity translates into better interactions with customers.
It sounds like the Four Seasons has really cracked the code on creating a culture of excellence.
They have, and it all starts with putting people first.
So what can we learn from the Four Seasons? How can we apply these principles in our own workplaces?
Well, I think it starts with shifting our mindset away from the myth of the superhero leader.
The superhero leader. You mean the one who swoops in and saves the day?
Exactly. The one who has all the answers and does everything themselves. It's a tempting myth to buy into, especially when we're passionate about our work.
Because we want to be the hero.
Right, right. But Sinek argues that this myth is ultimately unsustainable. Delegating, empowering others, and asking for help are essential for sustainable growth, both for the leader and the organization.
So it's not a weakness to ask for help.
Absolutely not. In fact, Sinek argues that the true mark of a great leader is the ability to build a team that can function effectively even when the leader isn't present.
So it's about creating a system, a culture, a shared purpose that transcends any individual.
And remember that amazing anecdote Sinek shared about meeting Neil Armstrong.
The first man on the moon.
Standing by a campfire as the moon rose over his shoulder, Armstrong simply said, "I've been there. There are footprints on the moon."
Wow, that's such a powerful image. Gives me chills just thinking about it. But what's the connection to leadership?
It's a reminder that with the right team, the right mindset, and the courage to dream big, even seemingly impossible goals can be achieved.
It's also a testament to the power of collaboration. Armstrong didn't get to the moon alone. It took the collective effort of thousands of people.
And that's a powerful message for all of us, no matter what our leadership aspirations are. We don't have to do it alone. We can achieve extraordinary things when we work together towards a shared purpose.
So if we were to distill all these incredible insights into a single sentence, what would it be?
That's a challenge. But I think it comes down to this. Great leadership is about cultivating self-awareness, embracing responsibility, and inspiring others to achieve collective excellence.
I love that. It's concise, powerful, and really captures the essence of what we've been exploring.
It's a reminder that leadership is a journey, not a destination. It's a continuous process of growth, learning, and collaboration.
And speaking of journeys, this brings us to the end of our deep dive on leadership. But before we wrap up, I want to make sure we connect all these incredible insights back to you and your own leadership journey.
That's so important. We've covered so much ground,
Yeah, it's been a whirlwind of leadership wisdom.
Everything from self-leadership and accountability
Right.
to the difference between management and leadership.
The importance of responsibility and excellence.
Even the danger of the action fallacy.
So much good stuff. But now it's time to get practical.
Yes, let's bring it home.
As you reflect on all we've discussed, what's one concrete action you can take this week to become a more effective leader?
Don't feel overwhelmed. It doesn't have to be something huge or drastic.
Yeah, start small.
Maybe just choose one thing that resonated with you and commit to taking action.
Like what? Give us an example.
Well, you could schedule 15 minutes each day for self-reflection,
Okay, 15 minutes.
using SNCC's prompts to guide your thinking.
Those were good ones.
Or you could try incorporating Tim's 3 habits of accountability.
Don't blame, look in the mirror, engineer the solution.
Exactly. The next time you face a challenge, at work or even at home,
And if you're feeling really ambitious,
go for it.
maybe take a closer look at your calendar and network.
Yes, using Torres's 3 questions as a guide.
Are you spending your time and energy in ways that align with your leadership goals?
It's all about intentionality.
These are just a few ideas to get you started. The key is to find what works for you and commit to making it happen.
Leadership is not a spectator sport. It's about getting in the game, experimenting, making mistakes, learning and growing.
So true. And don't be afraid to ask for help along the way.
Yes. Build your support system. Surround yourself with people who inspire you, challenge you, and support your growth as a leader.
Because we all need cheerleaders in our corner.
We believe in you. You have the potential to make a real difference in the world.
And we're excited to see what you accomplish.
So keep diving deep, keep exploring, keep leading.
And until next time, remember, great leadership is about cultivating self-awareness, embracing responsibility, and inspiring others to achieve collective excellence.
That's a wrap.